Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Today I'd like to look at the question of whether using a broker or an advisor to help with your motorcycle purchase is a viable service, a viable business line. I kind of got to thinking about this topic after I made some recent videos. One was how some, I emphasize the word some, Harley Davidson dealers screw over their customers. And I also did another video on how to buy a Harley Davidson motorcycle. Now, a lot of the things I talk about are common to buying any motorcycle, but there are some things that are, I think, more characteristic of Harley dealerships than non-Harley dealerships. But in broad terms, the main issue is buying a motorcycle isn't a very efficient process compared to, say, buying a car or a truck. And I think there's a lot of historical reasons for that, but a lot of the sales practices employed at motorcycle dealerships were originally pioneered, if you will, at car dealerships. I mean, they're all vehicles by definition. Some of these practices are good, and some not so good. The sales process or the buying process for cars has changed quite a bit with the use of the internet. You can search around, get a pretty good idea of what excuse me, a new car would cost by searching the internet, and you can even email or call sales managers or the internet manager and get a pretty good rock bottom price before you even set foot in the dealership. Try doing that with a motorcycle, particularly a Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's not going to get you anywhere. The internet is basically like the internet was never invented when it comes to buying a motorcycle, in my view. A lot of consumers are growing weary of just the traditional car buying experience where you go in, find a vehicle that you like, maybe test drive it, and then sit down and start haggling on the price of their vehicle, the trade-in value of your vehicle, the extras, the extended warranty, the finance terms, and so on. And that takes hours. So to cater to the segment of the market that isn't very experienced at that, or just doesn't have time for it, or just doesn't have the patience to put up with all that, you have companies like CarMax coming along. Now, they offer single price negotiation, if you will. There is no negotiation. It's like going to Walmart. The price is marked as what it is. Now, I prefer to make my own deals. I think, but I've learned from many years of experience. I've gotten good deals. I've made some mistakes and gotten bad deals over the years, and so I've earned that experience, that capability of being a fairly effective negotiator, in my view. But I don't like having to put all the hours into it necessarily either, just in terms of grinding it out. My most recent motorcycle purchase, I ended up dealing with 3 Harley Davidson dealerships. The first one was completely outrageous in terms of how they tried to mess me over on burying the prices into the monthly payment, which I have great credit. So what was the issue? I didn't understand why they thought I would fall for that. Then I basically took where I left off on numbers to a different dealership, tried to deal with them over the phone and in person, didn't get much further with it. And then finally I had to go 100 miles out of town and got a good deal there. But the whole process probably took me 6 or 7 hours to buy a motorcycle. It shouldn't be that time consuming, shouldn't be that combative, if you will. Now you've got companies selling cars over the internet. Carvana is just one of them. I mean, they've got their vending machines, but you can actually just buy a car over the internet and have it delivered to your front door. So another thing, it's not quite a new idea, but I've never heard of it relative to the motorcycle buying process. Here's an article that was published in Edmunds in April of 2009. Should you use a car buying concierge, or basically a middleman? There's these companies that you can go to their website or contact them and They'll help you develop a budget, figure out what kind of vehicle you like. I mean, they have to be very well versed, very knowledgeable about the industry. They will probably help you establish credit if you're going to finance, find out various lenders and good finance terms, and they'll have relationships with various vehicle sellers. And so if you basically go to one of these advisors, and I think they use that term because states are very particular about how they let people deal with vehicles in terms of regulations and licensing and things like that. So I think they try to avoid the use of the term broker or things of that nature, or agent. But they're merely an advisor. They're helping put a buyer together with a seller. So you're still buying from a dealership, but they're facilitating the entire transaction. So again, to my point, a lot of people say, well, that seems crazy. Why would I pay somebody? And these services typically are a flat fee, somewhere around $500 to $750 for the whole service. And some of these advisors actually will deliver the vehicle to wherever you select, your home or your business. So it's a pretty convenient process. And because you're going to somebody that knows all the ins and outs of the industry, they know what the new bike should be selling for. They have relationships with wholesalers or other dealers, and it might not be the same dealer you're buying the new vehicle from in terms of trading in an existing vehicle. So they have all these relationships set in place. You don't have to go it alone against a dealership that covers all aspects of this in a professional manner. I mean, that's what they do for a living. Most of us aren't professional vehicle buyers. So, it seems kind of crazy that somebody pay $500 to $750 for this service, but then you consider the value of your time, the aggravation, and ultimately, I think the only reason these people can stay in business is they're going to save you more money, even after you pay their fee, than had you gone it alone and tried to get your own deal. And there's so many places where you can get burned, whether it's the price of their bike or their vehicle, the price of your trade-in, losing it on the finance end, too high an interest rate, or just basically paying for something on a monthly payment basis that is a much higher overall purchase cost than what you were led to believe for the individual price of the new vehicle and your trade. Some of these businesses, when I first heard of them, I give you other examples of services that I thought, man, who would pay for that? Like DoorDash or Uber Eats. The idea of paying somebody to go get fast food and bring it to your house and paying a premium for that. I mean, obviously that's been a very good business, particularly this past year. There's value to people in convenience and predictability. But I mean, just to illustrate the point of how difficult it is, how inefficient it is, in my view, to buy a motorcycle. Not just Harley Davidsons, but any type of motorcycle in general. But I think more so with Harley Davidsons. I mean, if I were to go to, say, Cycle Trader, how I look at trying to get a bargain on a new bike is I would search the particular motorcycle I'm looking for, and I'd sort by price, and I'd probably search nationwide. And let's say I'm looking for an MT10. I could get a whole range of prices, and now some of that's clickbait, but some of it's legitimately low price dealers just wanting to clear that inventory out. Like right now, the Suzuki Katana, came out a year or so ago, and it's been pretty much a sales flop. I mean, they're still at all the local dealers around here where I live, and that's a $13,000 MSRP bike. Well, if you go to Cycle Trader, you can identify people selling that bike for around $9,000. Again, you got to make sure that's a true out-the-door price. It's probably going to be a little bit higher, but substantially lower price than the MSRP. Now try do that with a Harley. I did that, and of course, it matched my previous experience with that. You get full MSRP. I mean, CycleTrader is just another lead generation tool for the Harley dealers. Nobody's offering bargains that they're advertising on CycleTrader. So I think this market, in terms of buying and selling motorcycles, is a viable opportunity for people to act as an advisor to help people effectively and efficiently and more cheaply buy motorcycles. And this isn't something I would know enough to do. I mean, I've never sold motorcycles on a professional basis. I think this is for somebody that's already in the industry. And the people that come to mind, and hopefully if anyone thinks this is a viable idea, this is going to help some people out, because, you know, Harley Davidson has closed upwards of 70 dealerships, and I think it's closing in on 100 dealerships here in the last year. I mean, you just see story after story of various Harley dealerships, even longtime dealerships, having to close their door. So if you estimate, let's say, 100 Harley dealerships with an average of 30 people on staff, you know, that's around upwards of 3,000 people who were previously associated with Harley Davidson dealerships that no longer have a job. And a large percentage of those people are going to be knowledgeable enough to do something like this, act as an advisor. Now, the biggest challenge, I think, for somebody doing this is finding dealers that are going to play ball. I mean, if let's say I'm an advisor and I call my local dealer and I've got a client who's going to pay me $500 to help them get a new Street Glide Special at or below MSRP, as an example. Because if they did it on their own, they'd be walking out the door likely well over MSRP with all the extra fees, and maybe losing it on the finance side. So I call up a sales manager, a general manager at my local Harley dealer and say, hey, I got this guy or gal that's wanting to buy a Street Glide Special at this price. And I imagine I get a reaction like, well, tell them to come on in and we'll deal with them and not deal with you. So change that around and take somebody who was recently at a Harley dealership that no longer has a job. They know people in the industry. And I think over time, it's not going to be an easy thing to start out with, like any business. But over time, I think some dealers, you may have to go further afield geographically to find somebody who's going to play ball. But if they realize, look, he's got a client who's pre-qualified, ready to buy, they may or may not have to deal with the trade. Your advisor may be working with somebody else on your trade to get top dollar for it. It's very clean. You know, come in and just send them the paperwork. If you can do a deal for these numbers, I got somebody willing to buy. It's very straightforward. I think there's some viability with that type of market. Again, it's quite a process. Do you want to figure out what your bike's worth? Do you want to figure out if your dealer's going to give you that for that going to trade you for that price? Do you want to run the gauntlet of the 4 square close? I mean, again, I think an advisor isn't going to deal with any of that nonsense, because the people at the dealership, if they're dealing with the advisor, already knows they're not going to fall for that stuff. So it just makes it a lot more efficient in my view. And again, this isn't for everybody. I don't think I would use an advisor unless I was in some kind of situation where I was in a huge hurry. I mean, I've gotten this experience over so many years that I know what to do, but it is quite frustrating. It is kind of tempting if I had a particular color bike and I'm looking nationally. I mean, I think I'd have better success with an advisor than just trying to go it alone and call in 20 dealerships across the country and try and find out if I could get a decent deal on a very preferred model based on color or some other feature. So what do y'all think about this idea? Is that something you think has some viability? You think it might help some of these people out that are looking for work and were most recently at a Harley dealership? Please drop me your comments below, and as always, thanks very much.